It's kind of that way in Missouri too. So, go look over the edge and go.
So there's not
Oh, that's
really.
the garbage dump.
Arkansas, you know,
Arkansas.
It's not-
Oh, yeah, that too.
Arkansas.
Yeah, Arkansas. Yeah. Yeah. I'll call to order the monthly meeting of the Shell Rock River Watershed District, February 14th, 2023. Leah, please call roll.
Manager Pasuski,
Aye.
Manager DeBoer,
Here.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager Bakken,
Here.
Manager Kramer,
Here.
Manager Delger.
Here. Item number 2, do we not have, well, we don't have anybody from the public from the forum, so, but, so we'll go on to the next one. The consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
My Manager Kramer, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'd like to vote from the agenda. There's a change on the treasury report
No, it's on the claims.
claims, excuse me.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, we'll pull item 3D out of the consent agenda and move it to 5D.
So do I have to start all over then with, because we're making a change? Or just go with the motion?
No.
Then I need a new motion. Do I have a motion with a change on the consent agenda?
So moved.
By Manager Wasuski, do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Kramer. Any discussion again? Hearing none, please call roll.
Manager Pasuski,
Aye.
Manager DeBoer,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager Bakken,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Delger.
Aye, carried. Number 3, approval of the agenda. Item 3 is the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions that need to be made to the rest of the agenda?
Mr. Chair, we have 2 items that one has to be removed. So item 5B, motion to approve Century 21 as listing agent for the property. We're going to pull that one, that on the March agenda. And then we're going to add 6A, the motion to award the contract for the Belsham property and attach a conflict of interest waiver to that motion.
So do I have a motion to approve with the changes? Pardon that here, well, by Manager Blake.
Yeah.
And seconded by
Second.
Kramer. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call roll.
Manager Pasuski,
Aye.
Manager DeBoer,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager Bakken,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Delger.
Aye, carried. Item number 4, Administrator Andy Henschel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. So give you a little bit of update on the legislative event. First, I want to start off by saying that we do have bills introduced in both the House and Senate for the bonding project for the Fountain Lake restoration. We do have House File 277 and Senate File 172. Both of those have been introduced, and we are waiting to see if we get on the list for both the House and Senate. But again, the bills have been introduced. There has been an increase in cost. If you remember, in 2021, we had 7.5 million funding requests. And in 2022, with inflation, we moved that to 8.6. With the increased inflation, our bonding bill sits at 9 million right now to complete the project for the Fountain Lake restoration. So those bills have been introduced. This week is the MOD legislative breakfast. We meet as a group on Wednesday. We meet first of all with just the administrators meet on Wednesday from 9 to noon. And then from roughly 1 to 4, we pull in other board members from MOD. And then we also pull in other representatives from DNR, Bowser, and go through some of the legislative priorities for MOD. I can tell you that MOD's biggest thing for the rural watershed districts was an increase in admin levy. That's been set at 250,000 since 2001. So a little over 20 some years. There has been a bill that is in both the House and Senate to increase that to the 500,000 that MOD has requested. So that is good news for the rural watershed districts. Other than that, then we do have a breakfast Thursday morning with any of the representatives from the legislature that can attend. And then Thursday, myself, Courtney is coming up, and Brad, Mr. Kramer will also be up there. We have 4 meetings set up right now. We're going to meet with Senator Janicki from Owatonna. We're going to meet with Senator Dornick and Senator Frentz, and of course Representative Bennett. Just so you know, Janicki and Frentz are both sit on the Capital Investment Committee for the Senate. So that's going to be the one that the 2 meetings that are probably the most important in that group. Dornick and Bennett, of course, have already heard our story, but definitely again sell it to them and give them the updated information sheet on the project and go from there. So a lot going on. Again, it's fast and furious up there. More likely we won't see a bonding bill. It's gonna wait. That's usually how it goes. And we'll see how it goes. I mean, I have a good feeling this year, but every time I have a good feeling, I seem to get kicks. So
You don't have a good feeling.
yeah, that should be the moral of the story. Not have a good feeling. So. All right, item C is a MOD monthly update. So I gave, most of the monthly update is the big event, the legislative breakfast coming up. However, I do want to talk a little bit about summer tour. Summer tour is going to be hosted by the Shell Rock River Watershed District, Cedar River Watershed District, and Trail Creek Watershed District. Trying to combine all 3 of us here in southern Minnesota. So right now the tentative date, or I shouldn't say tentative, they're pretty much set in stone. The dates are June 20th through the 22nd, which is a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. The big event for the board is going to be Tuesday night. That's the welcome dinner, where we're going to have all 3 watershed districts there welcoming everybody to come in. Right now, tentatively the dates or the plan is to have that at Wedgewood Cove. Earlier in the day, from 9 to 12 is going to be the MAWA, that's the administrators meeting, which will also be at Wedgewood. And then from 12:30 to 4:30, we're having a partner update and educational piece. And that will also be at Wedgewood. And then the following day is the tour. So that's basically a bus tour of all projects within each watershed district. We're looking at right now, splitting that up between all 3 entities. We haven't set in stone what projects we're going to look at for each of the entities. But we'll either start with the Cedar River and then work through Turtle Creek and end up here, or vice versa. So still a lot of details that have to be worked out. But staff has been putting a bunch of time and effort into planning some of this. Brad's had some great ideas that he shared with MOD that MOD shared with us. So we're looking at doing some unique things for the dinner, or excuse me, the lunch for the bus tour. We're thinking that would be at the pavilion out at the park, and having some food trucks available for everybody in the bus to eat lunch at a food truck. Along with that, we'll probably give at that, we'll have sort of a working lunch, and we'll do a presentation on the dredge project for Fountain Lake, since we're right there on Fountain Lake. So that's sort of tentative right now. So the tour we're looking at for Wednesday is gonna go from roughly 8:30 to 4:30, and then Thursday morning. The only thing really scheduled is the mod board meeting, which you guys can attend if you want. Brad has to attend because he's on the board. And I will probably attend just because it's here in Hubbard Lee. So the big night for our board is, of course, the Tuesday night for the welcome reception. So just if you want to mark that on your calendars for Tuesday, June 20th. I think it'll be a fun event. Last time we hosted this was in 2009, so it's been a while since it's been here. We've got a lot of projects done since then. And would like to show them out. So that's my update there. And then there's no questions. Any questions on either the legislative or the mod? Hearing none, seeing none, I'm going to move down to item 5D. This is what we added out of the consent agenda, the authorization for payment of claims. If you look at the one that you were handed, there was a duplicate in there for the mod dues and Pearson, Copay, and Benda of $5,384 and $5,384. That is not correct. So the mod dues is the $5,384, and the new updated cost for Peterson, Coker, Hayden, Benda is $1,418.50. So that is the change. So if I can get a motion to approve that change in these claims.
It's
Motion to approve 5348 and 141850.
Bonus, huh?
you read it wrong a couple of times.
Oh, sorry.
The motion is by Manager Hanson. Do I have a second? Second by Manager DeBoer. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call roll.
Manager Besuski,
Aye.
Manager DeBoer,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
I do that too.
Manager Bachman,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Dalton.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Okay, then we'll go on to item 6.
Thank you. First item is a motion to award a contractor for the Belchon property noting a conflict of interest for Al Bakken. We received 5 quotes for this project. The lowest was $48,716.50 from Jensen Excavating and Trucking. And the largest that we received was a quote of $116,252.65. This is for the restoration work on the Belchon property that we purchased using Lassard Steam's funding, located on the intersection of County Road 17 and Lincoln Avenue. We are using Lassard Steam's funding to restore this property. We do have a deadline of June of this year to get the project completed. We're very happy with the bids that we received, and we're looking forward to working with Jensen Excavating and Trucking. However, we do note that it is a conflict of interest with Al Bakken, being that is his son-in-law. And so we just need to make that known. But yeah, looking for a motion to award that contractor.
Do I have a motion
So move.
by Manager Hanson? Do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Manager Kramer. Any discussion? Did we have an estimate on that?
We did. It was engineer's estimate was $56,120. So it was approximately 13% below engineer's estimate.
Perfect. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Lee, please call roll.
Manager Besuski,
Aye.
Manager DeBoer,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager Bachman,
Abstain.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Dalton.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item is a motion to approve a joint powers agreement with the city of Albert Lea. This joint powers agreement was included in your packet. I want to note that it is with the city of Albert Lea for reimbursing them for street sweeping equipment purchases. Sorry, not the purchase, but the actual act of doing the street sweeping. The reason why we have to have it this way is because our funding source that we're planning on using, which is our Bowser One Watershed One Plan funding, also called watershed based implementation funding. They don't like the term of purchasing equipment because there's more red tape that follows that. So instead, they're asking us, instead of helping to purchase the equipment, to pay the city to implement street sweeping activities. So the city will still be getting their same amount of money. We have in this agreement for $250,000 over a 10-year time frame. And so that is going to be paid for with using district funds as well as the watershed based implementation funding. The city did have a city council meeting last night, and as far as I know, it was approved. So just looking to enter into this joint powers agreement.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Manager Pasuski, do I have a second?
Second.
Manager DeBoer, any discussion?
Question, are we gonna do 10 years, so it's 25,000 a year, is that the,
It'll vary by year, but we're just committing to $250,000 over the 10-year time frame.
okay, so our sales tax could run out before this 10-year period, correct?
Potentially.
Okay, so,
But the grant is dedicated for 10 years.
Yeah, we'll be getting, so the city actually applied for the Clean Water Partnership loan, so the city is using that to get 0% interest. While we help reimburse the city back for their equipment purchases.
Okay.
I do also want to point out that there's an extreme need for street sweeping after applying for all of the grants. It really is an extreme amount of, it captures a lot of sediment and associated phosphorus. So it's something that's in the district's plan to continue to implement, and it's really a needed activity, especially with all of the lakes in Albert Lake.
I agree. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Leah, please call roll.
Manager Pasuski,
Aye.
Manager Ward.
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager Bachmann.
I,
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Belcher.
Aye, motion carried.
Thank you. The next item is a motion to enter into a watershed-based implementation funding and associated work plan. So again, referencing that one watershed, one plan money, we are looking at entering into a grant agreement. The Shell Rock is the fiscal holder between the four entities that are all involved, which is the City of Albert Lake, the SWCD, Freeborn County, as well as ourselves. So we're the day-to-day holder. So we are the ones, the entity that's going to hold the money. And so we received a grant agreement in the dollar amount of $322,128. You have the grant agreement in your board packet, but I'm just kind of going to go through what the budget items are in the work plan to be transparent. We have $20,000 for administration efforts, which is again held by the Shell Rock River Watershed District. We have $25,128 for education and outreach. That's specifically going to go a lot towards implementing soil health or egg implementation activities. We have $100,000 for incentive and cost shares. That includes cover crop cost sharing, waterway installations, water and sediment basin installations, control structures, that kind of stuff. So a lot of cost sharing for egg activities. We also have $20,000 for project development, so that staff working with landowners to be able to get these projects completed. $77,000 for rain gardens, which are going to be implemented within the City of Albert Lea. $20,000 for septic upgrades. This is for people who have housing that's low income and they need to update their septic system. So helping them to be able to update that. The $40,000, which is allocated for the street sweeping reimbursements. $10,000 for engineering and tech assistance, as well as $10,000 available for well sealing cost shares to get wells that are need to get sealed. So that's what we have in our work plan and budget. So looking for a motion to enter into this grant agreement or allow staff to sign into the grant agreement.
We have a motion. So by Manager Kramer, do I have a second? Manager Pasuski, any discussion?
Chair, just to go back to what Al was discussing on the earlier one about the street sweeping and the agreement with the city. So if you look at the agreement that Courtney just read, you know, we have $40,000 in there right now for the city street sweeper. So if you look at that, that's a biannual budget for 2 years. So if it goes for 10, that's roughly $200,000 just in that. So there's roughly $50,000 that would come out of our sales tax over that period to cover the rest of the sweeper. However, with that being said, we can amend that budget within the one watershed, one plan, and look at, I mean, if we're seeing huge benefits from street sweeping and, you know, even we want even more phosphorus removal, stuff like that, we can actually increase or switch around those budgets. So maybe instead of you know, we can pull $20,000 out of the project initiation and put that towards street sweeping too. So those budgets aren't set in stone, but it is set for the 2-year biennium. But come the 3rd year, we can, you know, sometimes manipulate those budgets a little bit towards what is working and what's not working. because we don't know if all those projects, you know, for instance, cover crops. You know, if they're gonna go gangbusters, then we might have to add more money to that one as well, so there is some wiggle room with
And also point out that all future work plans will have to be agreed upon between all entities.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, will you please call roll?
Manager Besuski,
Aye.
Manager DeBoer,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager Bakken,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Delger.
Aye, motion carried.
Next item I have is a motion to approve a sub-agreement for the watershed-based implementation funding. I mentioned that we are the day-to-day holder of the grant, so we're in control of the dollar amount. However, there are activities that we don't do, such as septic installations. So we have a sub-agreement that will be between the Shell Rock and an entity that we would be giving approved dollar amount of funding to. So for example, this Freeborn County does the well septics and they kind of overview the installation, check soils, that kind of stuff. So what we do is we have a sub-agreement that is allowing us to, let me rephrase that. It's allowing Freeborn County to spend the, $5,000 per septic system. And then we would reimburse Freeborn County for that $5,000. So the sub-agreement has our grant agreement, budget, and work plan, which basically allows each entity that we will have the sub-agreement with, and it'll give them the dollar amount that's approved that they can spend, as well as what activity it is for. So another example would be the SWCD and cover crops. If they're working with a producer to implement a cover crop contract, we would be allowing them to spend money, the watershed-based implementation money, for that activity. I do want to point out that since we sent this out in your agenda packet, there was a change, and that change includes amending a work plan. So we all know that we have budgets that are set from the beginning, but as time goes on, they can change. And so we wanted to be able to allow flexibility that if there was a slight dollar amount, say we needed 30,000 for septic systems instead of 20, and you needed to make a budget shift, it allows us to be able to make that budget shift and still keep the sub-agreement in place without having to bring it back to our board as well as the entity's board. So it allows for some modifications. There was some language change from the version that you have. Is there any questions on that?
We have a motion.
So moved.
Manager Kramer, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
By Manager Bakken. Any more discussion? Hearing none, will you please call roll?
Manager Besuski,
Aye.
Manager DeBoer,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager Bakken,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Delger.
Aye, motion carried.
Thank you. The last item is a Miller Track wetland restoration, IC&E wetland enhancement, or wetland restoration project update. This is for the project that's located about 2 miles east of Alden along the interstate. We did have quote packages 1, 2, and 3 being worked on. That was tile reroute on the south side of the interstate, as well as some scraping and swales being developed. Construction kind of stopped for the winter just because material was getting too frozen and it was just getting too difficult to work with scrapers. So they kind of put a halt on it for right now. They will come back in the spring and continue to work on it. We did put quote package 4 out for bid. This is dealing with the reroutes on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife property. After this meeting, I'm actually going to be attending the Freeborn County workshop to go over the public hearing process that is going to be on the agenda for their county board meeting in March. So we are looking as a watershed district to award a contractor for quote package 4 at our next board meeting. But all in all, very happy with the progress that the contractors had so far this year. This one does have a deadline of that June 20th because of our Lessard Sames funding. So I was happy with the amount that they got done, knowing that you never know what kind of weather the spring is going to have. What they got done when they could was great. So looking forward to them finishing up in spring and then starting quote package number 4.
Anything else?
Yeah.
On to item number 7, managers items. Are there any managers have any items?
I do, please.
Okay.
Our next meeting is March 14th. Is there any chance of a workshop after that meeting? I've got some issues I'd like to go over, like the county's drainage ditches as far as redetermination. There's some on the south side of Alberta that probably need to be redetermined, and I'd like to maybe talk about it and make a recommendation to the county. We need some retention stormwater ponds on the freeway system. I learned a little bit about that the last 6 weeks. If they rebuild the roads, they put in stormwater ponds or update them, but if you don't rebuild the freeways, you don't ever get one. And I mentioned that a couple months ago. Cover crops, there's some items I'd like to talk about at a workshop too on that. We've been doing it off and on for 10, 12 years now, so it's good, but Minnesota doesn't always work for cover crops, but I'd like to have that on the agenda. What else I got? Septic systems, I'd like to have that review too. Well, what's happened in the last 20 years, were they're on the finish line or not, so.
I don't think they are yet. In the rest of the county.
Yeah.
I know they're working township by township
Yeah.
throughout the rest of the county.
Thank you.
Okay, any other managers items? Hearing none, we'll go to our next meeting is March 14th, so possible.
So, Mr. Chair, that's the big question. There's 3 staff members that potentially could be gone. Well, there's 2 for sure that will be gone. Maybe 3. So the question to the board is if we could maybe possibly move that to the week before or the following week. And also add possible to that.
Please do.
Move it.
Yeah,
Move it to
I'm now the 2nd and 4th. The 2nd Tuesday is the morning at the county board. The agenda is busy today. I have to be on at noon, so it's easy to do workshops and everything here, but as a rule, if I'm on at 9 o'clock, I have to pick. Sometimes I don't have to be there. Sometimes I do.
Okay. So right now, what I'm asking is if the board would prefer to move that just the March meeting for now, and that's probably something we could talk about at the workshop as well as a possible change, permanent change. But right now I'm looking at either March 7th, which would be the Tuesday before the 14th, or March 24th, which would be
24th is a Friday.
excuse me, 21st. Following, a week following the 14th. So
Everybody would make the second. Would make the late one, 24th or 23rd. Oh. How good would be.
March 7th is a good one for me.
I do have that public hearing because the county has a meeting March 7th, so that public hearing is at 8:30, so I just would be
late.
yes. Or potentially absent.
Yeah, I'll be out of state March 14th.
Okay.
I could be able to make it.
So should we shoot, can we have a motion to move the meeting to March 7th of
So-
2023?
Made by Manager Hanson, do I have a second?
Second.
Made by Manager DeBoer, do we don't have any discussion? Hearing none, will you please call roll?
Manager Susie,
All right.
Manager DeBoer,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager Vaca,
Aye.
Manager Kramer.
Aye.
Manager Delta.
Aye, motion carried.
So that's a workshop too, right?
Well,
If we
If
get,
they have
if we
to.
get it set up.
Yeah.
If you have time to do that.
So then that's when you're gonna have a meeting, Courtney?
Actually thinking about it, that might. Okay, so our quote for bids are due March 3rd. And so we were looking at awarding that contract after March meeting, so it'll be really tight, but if it's March 7th, I think we can still make it.
That's where I get tired.
If the engineers those bids, you just won't have the tabulations then in your agenda packet. For the March 7th meeting for quote package 4.
We could have.
How big is it?
I don't wanna say.
No, I get it.
Big one.
We did an $8 million one just back in December. One day.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
We
it
was
wasn't
requested, I
guessing,
don't know if you guys. Oh, that's why I was getting it.
so We should be good with the 7.
Anything else?
Double check.
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Aye.
Or Manager Hanson and Manager Bakken, any discussion over the adjournment? Hearing none, will you please call roll.
Manager Sisson,
Aye.
Manager Clark,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager Bakken,
Aye.
Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Builder.
Aye, we are adjourned.